What defines American liberties, and how are these unique liberties preserved within our system of governance? Civil liberties are the cornerstone of individual freedom within the American system. They are essentially limitations placed on government power, defining spheres where individuals can act without government interference. We can think of civil liberties as negative rights, protections from government. Civil rights, protections by government. Primary source of civil liberties today could be pointed to the Bill of Rights, right? The first 10 amendments to the Constitution, added at the insistence of some anti-federalists, not all. These amendments enumerate specific freedoms. Initially, the Bill of Rights applied only to the federal government. However, through the doctrine of selective incorporation, the Supreme Court has gradually applied most of these protections to state and local governments as well, using the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment as the vehicle, and so they've been incorporated at the local and state level as well. You're likely familiar with a lot of these civil liberties. Let's dive into some of them through the First Amendment first, freedom of religion. There's two clauses. The Establishment Clause, i.e. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, ... And then the Free Exercise Clause, both of which protect individuals' right to practice their faith without undue government interference. This creates a separation between state and government, although its exact boundary is constantly debated. It depends where you're at. I've been to many a high school football game in Texas where old Supreme Court cases that decided that prayer in public schools was disallowed were routinely disregarded. Freedom of expression. The broad category involves freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Vital for democracy, these two elements, including for open debate, criticism of government, and generally the broad flow of information. People have to be willing to tell the truth for the truth to get out. Protection is robust, extended into even unpopular or offensive speech, i.e. Texas v. Johnson, and flag burning is a protected form of speech in the United States. Then there's the right to petition for redress of grievances and the right to assemble, protecting the right to gather peacefully and ask the government to address concerns the citizens have. Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. We've seen sort of non or bipartisan commitment to protect individuals' right to information on their phone, to have that be an extension of their goods, right? Americans have an aversion to government dating back to the Revolution meddling in their private affairs. There's the rights of the accused, the Fifth, Sixth, Eighth Amendments, as well. Dig into this, those amendments that provide a crucial safeguard to those operating within the criminal system who might be innocent. The presumption of innocence is baked into our system. There's due process of law, which guarantees fair treatment and procedures when the government seeks to deprive someone of life, liberty, property. Think eminent domain. A new road is being built. What are the protocols by which government can take your land, and what obligation do they have to make it right? It's also even procedural fairness in terms of notice, hearing. What does the government expect of you when it comes to serving on a jury, things like that too. There's protection against self-incrimination, i.e. pleading the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. You can't be coerced into incriminating yourself. There's the right to counsel, thanks to Gideon versus Wainwright. Literally, someone wrote and argued that they weren't being well represented, and the court heard that case. That handwritten note made its way from a prison cell to the desks of the Supreme Court justices who settled on this idea that representation would need to occur in such cases. The state must provide a lawyer in such cases. You have the right to a public and speedy trial. You have protection against double jeopardy. You have the right to be informed by police of your rights, i.e. Miranda rights, Miranda versus Arizona. And then there's habeas corpus, though mentioned in Article 1, not in the Bill of Rights, that protects against unlawful detention. Show me the body, requiring authorities to justify holding a person. You cannot be held indefinitely. You have protection against cruel and unusual punishment as well through the Eighth Amendment. You also have a right to privacy that's not explicitly listed, but the Supreme Court has read this into a number of rights. The right to privacy from the penumbras or implied zones of the First, Third, Fourth, Fifth, and even the Ninth Amendment to the Constitution. There's also the liberty component of the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause. This has formed the foundation of a number of cases, including contraception, Griswold versus Connecticut, abortion, Roe versus Wade, overturned by Dobbs, same-sex marriage, Lawrence v. Texas, etc. If you're doing it privately, the government has the responsibility to try to remain out of it, basically. There are limits to civil liberties. Civil liberties are not absolute. They must be balanced against other compelling interests, such as public safety, national security, and the rights of others. Speech, for example, can be limited if it constitutes an incitement to imminent lawless action. That's the Brandenburg versus Ohio case. If it results in defamation or libel or slander, something illegal is going on, or there's actual malice for public figures. Threats are true. You're going to commit a crime. You're talking about how you're going to commit a crime, or obscene, meeting the Miller test. This has changed over time as well. Are you doing something that the public would find overwhelmingly offensive, and then what can the law do about that? Religious freedom doesn't permit practices that violate general laws protecting health and safety. A lot of court cases on that subject. Assembly can be subject to reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. You'll sometimes find a free speech zone, right, at a big public event that's a little bit out of the way and not likely to accelerate or create issues then. Times of crisis, the government has often asserted greater power, sometimes infringing on individual liberties, frequently trotting on individual liberties. Examples include Japanese internment during World War II. I think of Lincoln suspending the rights of reporters, even jailing reporters, expanded surveillance powers under the Patriot Act after 9/11, PRISM, warrantless wiretapping of Americans. I even think about drone strikes overseas of people who are potentially Americans. These instances highlight the constant tension between security and freedom that we felt particularly sharply after 9/11, even still into 2025, 26. Courts often play a crucial role in drawing these lines between what is in the interest of the common good and then what is in the interest of the individual and all of our individual rights. Because if one person has their rights infringed upon, everyone is subject then to the same level of infringement. There's strict scrutiny for fundamental rights. There's a rational basis for others to determine where and if government restrictions are justified. We can have a vigorous debate whenever it occurs, and we really need a vigorous debate to find out where these lines are and really ought to be.